Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Veeam Trailblazer Talks. My name is David Davis from Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator. Today's topic is digital trust, ensuring security and availability in the age of digital transformation. Before we get started, just a few things that you should know about today's event. We want this to be educational. We want to help you to solve your problems around security and availability. So we encourage your questions on the event, and we'll be doing a Q&A session as well. So keep those questions coming. We also have our best question prize that we're doing to help encourage those questions, which I'll talk about in just a moment. I want to remind you that we do have a link available there in the handouts tab where you can learn more about today's topic. The resource there is the 2021 Modern Data Protection and Best Practices Guide from Veeam. So make sure that you check that out. And at the end of the presentation, we'll be announcing the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card prize. That prize is only available, of course, if you're watching this live, and prize winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media. The prize policy can be found there in the handouts tab. And I mentioned our best question prize. We're doing this new in 2021 for an Amazon $50 gift card to help shake some questions loose, if you will. So keep those questions coming. And with that, it's time to kick off another exciting episode of the Veeam Trailblazer Talks. All right, I'm excited now to introduce you to today's expert panelists. Welcome, Mr. Dave Russell, Vice President of Enterprise Strategy, Nikki Jennings, Vice President of America's Systems Engineering and Professional Services, Dang Keller, Vice President of Channel Sales at Veeam, and Damian Sargent, Country Leader for Veeam. Thank you so much for being on. Dave, I'll hand it off to you.
Hey, thank you so much, David. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We wanted to do something a little bit different in this episode, our third installment of our Veeam Trailblazer Talks, and that is to have a panel. We've had two other expert people that we've had come in and speak, but this time we thought it would be more interesting to kind of go around the horn. I'll let everyone introduce themselves. I'm Dave Russell, look after enterprise strategy globally at Veeam. I'll just go clockwise as I see them on the screen. Davey, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Veeam.
Hi, Dave. Thanks so much for having me today. My responsibilities within the channel organization at Veeam is to really own the partnership and business for our distribution partners as well as our alliance field sales organization. So if you think of that partner ecosystem that Veeam is into and bases their business on, I have direct responsibility for a big portion of that partner ecosystem.
Outstanding. And Damien, I'll go to you next. Now, you're making an international affair for us. Thank you very much, because you represent a fine country up north from where the rest of us are.
Your friends north of the border, Dave. Dave, thanks for having us on. As is mentioned, I'm the country leader for Veeam Software here in Canada. I'm located in Toronto, and I've been here about 4 years. Prior to that, I spent time at Cisco and IBM Canada.
Outstanding. And last but definitely not least, Nikki Jennings, global role, or I should say, not a singular country role. I mean, you look after Americas, north to south. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, for having me on. Nikki Jennings. I'm the head of pre-sales for North America as well as Canada and Latin America. And my team is consisted of professional services and SEs and solution architects who facilitate our customers as they're going through product evaluations and proof of concepts of our backup and disaster recovery solutions.
Excellent. Outstanding. Well, thank you all for being here. Do want to give a quick shout out. David mentioned at the outset, but please do type in your questions. If you see me looking off to the side, I'm looking to see anything that might be coming in. No wrong questions, no bad questions, that's for sure. And you could be selected for the best question. So we look forward to that. First thing I wanted to tee up was kind of like, why do we want to talk about digital trust? And certainly with the events of, say, the last year plus now, we've all interoperated now at work differently, but also in our personal lives differently. We've had to do things remotely. We've had to reach out online. In some cases, when we were all scrambling to find the staples, right? You couldn't find pasta or something like that. So you were trying to find all these suppliers. Well, that actually factors into digital trust. How do you know who you can believe in? How do you know that they'll actually have the goods that you're trying to acquire, or that they're going to send it in time? So I thought what might be an interesting icebreaker question is maybe each of us just describe what digital trust means to us. I mean, not an academic view, but if you kind of took at the intersection between your personal life and what you've seen, your role at Veeam, and obviously what's been going on over the last year. Dangvi, maybe I'll toss it over to you first. What does that phrase digital trust convey or infer to you?
Sure. So to me, and you're absolutely right, Dave, there's so much has changed in the past 12 months, but digital trust means the confidence that a consumer has, or that I have, in the ability of a company and their technology to really create that secure digital environment. I mean, I think about the amount of online shopping that I've been doing, the past year. It's accelerated quite a bit, and I've had instances where there were fraudulent activities and things that have happened that have made me question that brand. And in some instances, I've actually stopped using a certain brand because of some type of experience where I felt there wasn't that digital trust, and there's not a confidence in myself with that brand. So it's to me it's definitely something that is it needs to be at the heart of the strategy for most companies going forward, given the environment that we're in, and the fact that digital transformation is kind of the standard now for all companies and for consumers today.
Yeah, I like how you wove in the personal aspect of that. And, you have to think differently. You can't just assume that the goods are going to show up, especially if you order like 10 different electronic orders, you better be kind of tracking that to see, does everything actually arrive? How about Damien yourself? What might be your view on what digital trust means?
Sure. You mentioned about pasta and staples. I remember my front hallway being loaded with boxes, and it took me back to being at the grocery store stocking the shelves. But what it means for me, digital trust, is it's a bond between a consumer and a provider of services or service. I believe it includes integrity, doing the right thing when nobody's looking. And it includes proper security measures to ensure that I can transact safely online. And then most importantly for me is when we actually transact, is my actual personal data being kept safe and away from the bad guys. So that's what digital trust means for me.
Nice, good one. Nikki, how about yourself? And there's no wrong answer.
Yeah, no, definitely. Just to play off of Dangvi and Damien, I definitely agree. I think it's a transaction or some type of activity that's occurring between two parties. And what needs to be reached during that transaction is confidence. And how do you achieve confidence levels? So I think about certain attributes, right? And those attributes are: am I safe during the transaction? Is my data, that exchange, private? And I think a big one, is pretty obviously, a big one for me is accountability. Is this entity going to be accountable in the event that there is some type of breach or vulnerability that's occurring? What risk is going to be mitigated? How's that going to be handled? Importantly, what do they do to ensure that's not going to occur?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, security. I mean, we're not a security company. We're really in the risk reduction business at Veeam, but yet we all play a role in security nonetheless, whether it's our personal finances, the security of our home, or obviously the security of our business. And Dangvi, I like what you mentioned. You mentioned that a couple fraudulent things happened, or things that didn't go in your personal life as expected. I feel like we can probably all attest to that. But follow-up question on that: was that unfortunate experience a new provider that you were working with, or did that actually come from someone that previously had been working well for you? You did have that level of trust before.
I would say it's the latter. So, and it made me think of, how do I mitigate my risk of, working with this sole provider? So, if you think from a strategy perspective and a customer experience, I mean, customers are much more knowledgeable and savvy. They're going to do their research and make sure that they have that confidence in that brand. The instance I mentioned about the fraudulent activity and not being able to access my data was with the bank. And Dave, I looked up the bank. I'm not going to mention. I looked up the bank to see if it was a Veeam customer, if there was an opportunity for us. But I essentially took more than 50% of the funds I had in that bank and opened up another account, several accounts, just to mitigate. So because for a day I could not access anything. And it was, overwhelming and scary for me. I mean, you think about your savings and, just the fact that you need money to go to the grocery store, and we're not carrying cash that much now, given, and especially during COVID, it was just eye-opening for me. And so now as I, shop online, I look at the brands and, I think to myself, is this company going to implement the right processes and use the right technology, as Damien and Nikki mentioned, to ensure that we have that secure experience.
Wow, I think that'd be worth riffing off for just a moment, because Damien, interesting what Dangvi said. It's, if I paraphrase, it's like I came into this relationship trusting, and because I had past experience, it wasn't unfounded, but all of a sudden something happened. And what did Dangvi do? She took half her money and went elsewhere. She literally voted with her wallet. And we can imagine that happening in everyday lives, and as well as our personal work settings. That notion of just how quickly trust eroded for her, I mean, that's probably not unique to just Dangvi, is it?
It's not, Dangvi. And so this is an interesting one. As you mentioned the banking, and I'll give you an example from my perspective. Is they say the biggest thing that someone does in their life is buys a home. So about a month ago, I went looking for a home for myself, and sure enough, I found the property I wanted. Before I even left that house, I already got back to my home office. Sure enough, the contract was sent there digitally. I was able to sign off on it, send it back via DocuSign. And then sure enough, within 3 hours, we bought the home. Now, in Toronto, it's a little different than the US right now. In some of the states, we are at 100% stay-at-home order. So we're not allowed to leave for anything unless it's essential. So there was a closing period of only 2 weeks. Now try going to close a house in 2 weeks with not being able to see anyone at any bank, not being able to see anyone, any lawyers, not being able to see the brokers. So all of this was done through encrypted platforms, where I basically put everything out there, to the point of even meeting the lawyer for the first time and having to show my ID up to the camera. I look beside it and smile, and it's really me. But I remember we closed the transaction, and my wife and I looked at each other and we said, that was super easy, super fast, but a little bit scary, because we basically just trusted everything, with just everything being digital and online. And it got to the point even where my wife made me drive by the home to make sure it was even a home that we bought, because she hadn't even seen it yet. But this is the trust that we put in the platforms and the systems that hopefully just continues to move forward together.
Well, it's an interesting one. Yeah, believe it or not, my wife and I, we bought this home sight unseen. I had walked by the outside of it. We relied on the online pictures. So there is a certain leap of faith. Nikki, how about yourself? When we think about trust, and now trust being very temporal in this modern age, we see that on social, right? Someone makes an ill-advised comment on social media, and boom, just like that, this probably famous person, probably trusted, well-liked person, the whole perception is different. But from a business context, what have you seen? Any changes in the last year or so as a result of everything?
Absolutely, and I know we're going to talk about zero trust models later, but I do think that many cases we go into a scenario using a service, an application, and we trust that we're safe, right? And I think that with the shift of employees working remotely, the dynamics of workloads, applications, data that has transitioned to the cloud, making things a lot more complex, I think there's a lot more visibility from a lot of different aspects in terms of security and protocols that will keep us safe. I think On the other hand, Damien mentioned this, and I find it very interesting how you can buy a house in 2 weeks and that transaction occurred so quickly. We have to think about, from a business perspective, what is that customer experience? Safety and security implementation into these platforms is number one, but is it removing or eliminating convenience from the customer journey? And so it's such a huge balance that companies and businesses have to consider, so they're not degrading that convenience or that experience for the customer, but also keeping them safe.
Wow, that's a great one. Actually, that's a good transition to the second topic we were going to tee up, which is really, does digital trust and digital transformation have to coincide? Are they exclusive? Could they overlap? In other words, do you have to have digital trust to have digital transformation? What are your thoughts, Nikki?
I think that, well, I guess you could potentially say no. I think those that are not thinking about digital trust as the foundation of their digital strategy, as well as their platform and the products and services that they're delivering to a customer, it is absolutely the foundation. And I go back to that customer journey, right? And if that customer feels safe throughout that process, they know that the company is responsive, they know that the company is going to take care of them, they know that their data is protected, the economic growth in the new age of digital for businesses is explosive. And so I think it is just really the cornerstone and fundamentals of that success criteria.
Yeah. How about yourself, Damien? Are these mutually exclusive, or do digital trust, digital transformation really need to go hand in hand?
They need to go hand in hand. And the example I gave, that's exasperated by basically putting all of my trust in the process, but also putting the trust in the firms that they have the back end measures from a security perspective, from data protection, and that it's hand in hand. So me as the client, the consumer, feels safe, has a positive experience, and it's good for that brand.
Yeah, and I'll slightly rephrase it for you, Dangvi, because I don't want to give you like the rhetorical question. So, Dangvi, now you tell us a third time whether or not digital trust and digital transformation go together. But, do you think, if we think digital transformation, it's really about customer intimacy, whoever that customer may be, right? It could be an internal, it could be a partner, it could be the ultimate paying customer, it could be a prospect, of course. So do you think then, with the rise of digital transformation, that's placing some stress on the digital trust notion? What I mean by that, I think it was Nikki teed it up pretty nicely. Like, you've got these opposing forces of want to move faster, want to be safe and secure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't, your question on it is hand in hand. I think it needs to be integrated, because you can move from a strategy perspective. If you move too quick and you're not protecting your customer, you're going to have a bad customer experience. And, the whole point of moving fast and growing your business is going to be pulled back because of that poor customer experience. I definitely think that when you look at our ecosystem and the company's value chain, it's end to end. You've got to make sure that it's a strong value chain, and that digital trust goes and extends from the beginning with the technology all the way to the end where it meets the customer. And so when we think of like our partner ecosystem, whether it's our reseller partners that we're working with, our alliance partners, where our solution is fully integrated, tested, vetted, and ensured that it's the best of breed. It starts with that technology. And I would tell you, a lot of companies today are looking at security and digital trust, investing it more so or as much, if not more so, than the technology innovation itself, right? So making sure that you have that confidence in that customer experience and that security for that customer. So absolutely, I think it's hand in hand, integrated at some point, and it's really got to flow through the entire value chain for a customer in business.
And Nikki, I like what Dangvi mentioned around kind of ecosystems, partners. Trust is something that affects every aspect of this ultimate end-to-end relationship, which could be many, many different people, many, many different companies. From a Veeam perspective and how we deliver services, you're on the field, pre-sales, obviously working with partners. how does that actually work now in this day and age? Meaning you and a partner are aligned that you're both trying to make money, you're both trying to have a sale, but how do you now navigate, okay, but we're different companies potentially competing, interests, but yet a common goal. There's some
Right.
trust that goes involved in that. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, it's definitely a great question, and I think it's kind of a chain, right? Transitive situation or model, if you will. So you have the customer here, and then we've got our partner here, and we're here. And I think what we do as a company, as we vet our partners and work with our partners, education and ensuring that they understand how to implement our products, how to articulate and pitch the value proposition to the customers, answer those questions. And so a lot of my team's charter is to educate those partners on how to do that. And as we establish trust with the partners, they have the trust with the customers, and it is a chain effect.
Yeah, interesting. And I liked how you teed up zero sum as well, meaning the security aspect of that, the notion of moving things quickly. Damon, you mentioned made your probably single largest investment in your life, literally sight unseen, transacting now with people who you've probably never met. There may be even companies you've not even previously done business with. From a zero trust perspective, now taking out of maybe personal life back into a work situation, one of the aspects we see is right of least privilege or zero trust or other mechanisms to try to reduce exposures. Do you feel like we're going to need to harden that notion even further if we're going to be able to go further down this digital transformation initiative?
I think it's important. I always have the mindset of trust but verify. And coming prepared to this, like I obviously looked into some of the breaches that we've had across Canada. And the government of Canada issues a privacy commissioner that has a statement out to all of the Canadians. But when you look at the numbers, that's when it gets a little scary. So I guess between now and previously January 2019, we've had roughly 28 million data breaches for Canadians.
Wow.
You look at the population of all of Canada, it's 38 million. So 28 of 30, we're talking 74, 75%. The scary thing is that, yes, it's a lot of adults, but it's also our children, and it's the social media platforms. And as we look to the experience or the chain, as we try to provide a customer experience, with adding all these different vendors, there's little gaps for the bad folks to get into. And ensuring that all of these ecosystem partners work together, they collectively have to lock down on it. But when you look at these numbers, and this is for Canada, small scale, like it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So how can we as consumers protect ourselves and work with best of breed and brands in which we have strong digital trust for?
Wow, that's a scary percentage of
It's
north
so
of 7
high.
to 10.
It's
Yeah,
so high, and that was the alarming piece, Dave, is that it's not just adults, it's children, and they're already exposing themselves to these gaps. So it's really about us to help minimize that risk.
Yep, great. And as we start to transition, we've got a couple questions that have actually come in here. First one from Brooke. What's a result you're seeing, whether it's in security software, sales motion, increased demand for security or professional services, health checks, as a result of the SolarWinds hack? I'll just jump over to Dangvi. I mean, so SolarWinds supply chain hack, it wasn't them, it was someone that fed into their system that then went out into SolarWinds customers. And to be fair, it wasn't just SolarWinds, Microsoft was part of that chain as well. So have you seen partners or even end customers behave differently, ask different questions as a result of this one example of a supply chain hack?
Absolutely. And that's what I mentioned and talked about, the digital trust being at the heart of the strategy for a lot of customers and our partners, right? It's unfortunate that we let one example kind of get everybody to start doing and acting the way that we need to. So we really want to be proactive in working with our partners to ensure that they have the right strategy, technology, and solution to implement for the customers. But absolutely, I mean, in the conversations that I've had with some of the partners that I've managed in the US, it's definitely eye-opening. And like I said, I think everyone is moving very quickly to ensure that they have the right budget, technology, solutions to protect their own data, their customers, and provide that customer experience around that digital trust for consumers.
Yeah, and a couple questions have come in along these same lines, Nikki, so I'm going to kind of aggregate them and shoot them kind of your way. I want to give credit where credit's due. I believe Gina and then Venkata-san, and I apologize if I mispronounced that, but a couple questions around implementation, and this is kind of more of a Veeam implementation notion, which is, how do we go about implementing? How long does this normally take? And I can appreciate the answer is it depends, but maybe you could kind of phrase up a little bit what might it depend on? And we may have lost Nikki's video feed, so I'll do a warm standby jump in there. What I would say is Veeam, we pride ourselves on not requiring services from an implementation, from an ongoing management perspective. However, every environment is unique. And so having partners with the expertise of either the infrastructure that you're modernizing as you're going forward with Veeam can be very important, or just having an appreciation of, maybe I wanted to have a better business continuity plan than what I've had before. Let's bring in someone that actually can help me build that from the ground up. Damien, let me hit you with one here. With so much of our lives turning into digital relationships and transactions, how do we identify which digital partners are actually secure? That's coming in from Brent. Normally you hear of problem insecure partners in the news, but how do you know who is trustworthy? And maybe this is where zero trust comes in. Maybe you assume that someone that's new to you isn't trustworthy.
So I rarely ever pick up my phone if I don't recognize the number, first off. So it's that zero trust. And for a lot of things that I do action, I do want to at least be given a heads up. So in the example of the home purchase, as long as I was given a call to say, heads up, this is coming, it was like that second defense layer of feeling a little bit better with the trust factor. Meeting people in every day, I look to networks outside of just business, but networks in which I trust, and I leverage some of the platforms to get someone to vouch on behalf of someone else before I engage in a lot of conversation, as simple as that may be.
Nice. And as we really wind down now, I do want to give one last question over to Nikki, if you're there, from really another one from Brooke. Have you seen anything changing now as a result of the kinds of pre-sale interactions, customer questions that you may be getting as we get, unfortunately, more examples of hacks, of supply chain compromises, et cetera?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry about my network dropped. So a lot of our focus right now is really looking at current existing implementations and deployments of our VBR and VBO solutions to ensure that customers are following best practices, that they're following our security recommendations, or learning things that they actually didn't know to protect themselves. I would say we are having more and more of those conversations every single day with our existing customers, as well as new customers that are coming in, wanting to know what are the best practices. Teach me something that I can do to protect my data even more so.
Wow, that's a great way to wrap up, because best practices are best practices for a reason. And so sometimes just remembering to do the right thing is really hugely important. Thank you so much, Dangy, Damien, and Nikki. David, want to bring you back in, turn it over to you to announce our winner and to close us out on final housekeeping.
Excellent discussion. Thank you so much, Dave, and all the other experts from Veeam. This is such a timely topic. around digital trust, and I can tell that it's really resonated with the audience. We received so many questions during the event. I apologize to all those that we didn't have time to get back to live, but we do appreciate your questions, and those all help you to be entered into the best question prize as well. I now want to announce the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card. That's going out to Valerie Garcia from New Mexico. Congratulations. We'll reach out to you to deliver that gift card, and also our best question prize winner as well. Before you go, don't forget to check out the handouts tab for the best practices around ensuring security and availability in the age of digital transformation. And of course, visit veeam.com for more information. Thank you everyone for joining, and have a great day.